joining us this afternoon. Just a quick reminder, please hold off on your questions until the end, or you can submit them through the chat function and we will review them during the Q&A at the end. So again, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you taking time out of your day. We were going to discuss secure remote work technology today. We are joined by two of our cybersecurity experts, Chris Gaggio, PowerNet's VP of Security and Network Engineering, and Karen Riker, PowerNet's Senior Account Manager. A little bit about PowerNet as a company. We've been in business for over 28 years, started as a telecom reseller. As we've grown throughout the years, we've expanded our technology offerings significantly, including security and managed services. We support customers across the US with offices located in Ohio, Florida, Georgia, and Utah. A quick overview of our agenda today. We'll talk through the new normal that everyone is adjusting to, as well as the security concerns that come along with it and the ideal remote security scenarios. After, we'll go over what security solutions you should be aware of, including unified threat management and endpoint security. We will then move into remote work technology and safe practices, including securing your video conferences. Finally, we'll talk through how we can help and answer any questions you may have. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Karen.
Hello, everyone. Sorry about that little glitch. Hope you're all having a great afternoon. So we're going to kick off the webinar today with talking about today's new normal. So the new normal today is WFH, which stands for work from home. You know how in our industry we love acronyms, so that's our acronym from this. So WFH is work from home, which everyone is doing right now for the most part. Globally, it's so interesting. We are all in the same boat. Everyone is trying to navigate the move to a remote workforce. So some of the things you want to consider while you're navigating to the new normal is maintaining business continuity for remote employees. One of the ways to do that is through setting up a secure VPN. So people that have normally worked in the office have access to everything at home that they did in the office. Ease the adjustment period of newly transitioned remote workers. I have to say our HR department's done a phenomenal job of this. They have sent out a lot of great communications about how to work from home when you're used to working in the office. So things like setting a schedule and setting your work hours, taking breaks, regular breaks, and exercising during the day. Closing out at the end of the day, very important. I read an article the other day that people are working 2 hours longer a day, actually, working from home because they're working when they would have been commuting, and then they're working later in the day than they normally would have as well. So that was another suggestion for work from home, is to do something else during the time you would have been commuting. Don't work. So whether that's read a book or do yoga, whatever you want to do something for yourself during that time frame. Face-to-face communication. Of course, we've all been doing a lot of video conferencing and we've all been navigating that. We'll talk a lot more about that as we move on with the webinar. And then another thing too is to reduce the feeling of isolation for remote employees, especially if they live alone. So some of the things that we've done to combat that is planning social connection. So as we've had departments do social webinar type, not webinars, but video conferencing, which has been fun. But the other really fun thing we've done that we've never done before is we now have a regular company-wide happy hour, which has been really great because we've got employees all over the country. So that's actually been a lot of fun and hopefully something we'll continue to do after the lockdown is over. And the last thing, which is the majority of what we're going to talk about today, is ensure your business data is safe and secure. So what we need to do, or what you need to do as an organization, is evaluate what data is more prone to risk due to the shift to work from home. Sam, can you transition? Thanks. So this is no surprise to anyone. Of course, cybercrime is going to spike due to COVID-19. Cyber criminals love to take advantage of our fears and vulnerabilities. So here they are front and center. The first thing I'm going to talk about is some of the things we've seen in the phishing world. Some of the subject lines you're seeing out there as far as phishing emails related to this are coronavirus latest updates, coronavirus cure, coronavirus vaccine, COVID-19, everything you need to know. These emails look like they're coming from the World Health Organization, the CDC, the National Institute for Health. But if you hover over them and actually look at where they're coming from, you can tell they're not coming from there. So we really need to be diligent on these types of things. If you're getting an email that you were not expecting, absolutely do not click on the link. If it's something that seems interesting to you, like maybe it's an article, actually just do a Google search on the title of the article and try to find it that way instead of clicking on the link that's been sent to you from an unsolicited email. Some of the other interesting things that cyber criminals have been taking advantage of in this as well is shipping. So here's a real popular phishing email subject line out there these days: cancel shipment due to coronavirus. Another one is new shipping schedule details. And again, those look like, if you just glance at them, that they're coming from UPS or FedEx or Amazon. But again, if you hover over the email, if you really look at the email, you can see that they're not. The other thing that, of course, they're hitting on, they love to go after the IRS. So stimulus checks and payments are another huge thing that cyber criminals are sending spam out about. If you get anything that says stimulus check or stimulus payment, that's not how the IRS refers to it. The IRS refers to it as economic impact payment. First of all. Second of all, the IRS is never going to email you or text you or call you, for that matter. They're going to send you a certified letter in the mail if they're trying to get a hold of you. So just keep an eye out for that. Like I said, the official term is economic impact payment. If you get anything that says stimulus check or stimulus payment, it's most likely going to be a scam. The other thing that we're seeing is with the payroll protection program. So one of the subject lines we've seen with phishing emails for that is PPP cares needs signature. So it's a very official looking document, or it's a very official looking email that has a link in it that's titled review, file, and sign that you should click on. Again, if you have filed for the PPP funds and you haven't received them yet, just again, I caution you, just really look at these emails before you click on the things that are in them. Look and see where they're coming from. If it didn't come from your bank, call your bank first and ask them if there's something that you need to sign that you didn't sign. For example, actually one of those emails that I just told you about, when you hovered over, it looked like it was coming from the CDC, and when you hovered over it, actually, the sender was at manynations.com. So you need to train your employees to look for things like that. And of course, the other thing that's out there right now, which is normal this time of year, actually not really normal this time of year because it's later in the year, but the tax scams, the income tax scams, are out there in full force as well. So keep an eye out for those. Those will still be going around until July 15th. Some interesting stats that I got from Trend Micro about spam for the month of February this year to the month of March this year. So from February to March, there was a 220% increase in spam. And there was a 260% increase in malicious URL hits. Which is really astronomical. If you look at any graphs, it never spikes like that. So that's a huge, huge spike in both of those things. Trend Micro also offers a phishing simulation service if that's something you're interested in using on your employees. They actually offer it for free for up to 200 users, and they do have a work from home specific training module right now that's available. So if that's something that you're interested in, just get in touch with us after the webinar and I'll give you some more information on that. Now, moving on to malware and registration of new domain names. With cybercrime, you just can't imagine there's hundreds of different new domain names that are being registered that are on nefarious sites that have everything to do with, the wording, contains coronavirus or COVID-19. And there's just, I've seen pages and pages of the different URLs that are linked to malicious sites that have those. So again, don't click on any URL link in any email or even on a website that you aren't 100% sure is safe. this is an interesting one that I read about a few days ago. Most of you have probably seen the live global map of infections and deaths that Johns Hopkins University has put out. It's black, the map is black, and then it's got red circles for where the infections and death rates are. I know a lot of people have been using this because it's live real-time data. So some cyber criminals have spoofed it, and the really frightening thing about it is it's actually using the live real-time data, so it's accurate. It's exactly like the Johns Hopkins one, but it's not. So when you go to that URL, you are downloading malware. So again, double check the URLs. The real URL is coronavirus.jhu.edu. So what the cyber criminals are doing is they'll spell things slightly differently. They might add something into it, or they'll have it be, .com or .gov or .something else. So just know where you're going and be careful about that. All right, now I'm going to turn it over to Chris, and he's going to discuss the technical side of work from home security.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Great. So just to kind of go into, what we see as some of the more common scenarios for the work from home employees today, and how they're connecting, and how they're establishing that that link to the office or back to the organization in general. I'll kind of just start from the top. At the most ideal type of a scenario would be, and sometimes this ideal scenario is really more meant for a power user. Most of our technical and engineering staff in our company is set up this way, but the employee would have a company issued small home firewall deployed to their home, and off of that firewall appliance would establish a VPN connection back into the corporation or the corporate data center. That employee would be working off of a company laptop, and that connection would be up and available for them. They can also tag off things like IP phones on that and other devices that they may need to be productive. But in essence, that's creating an extension of the existing office network, or the traditional office network that they used to be on real time and all the time. And it's also isolating them from their internal home network, right, where the kids are home doing their schoolwork now, and everybody's streaming Netflix to keep entertained, and all those other crazy things that go on at home. Stepping down from that a little bit, really not anything in a negative way, but we'll also see an employee working from home, but instead of having that dedicated firewall appliance that's connecting back to the corporate office through a VPN, they're just doing that from their corporate laptop, right? So they fire up their corporate laptop, they open up a SSL VPN type software application. One of the key things there is also that they would use a two-factor authentication. So what that would typically look like is when you go to establish that VPN connection, you would log in first with your normal username and password that you would normally use to connect to the corporate network. And then you would either have like an external little token, or more commonly today, you're going to have a two-factor application that runs on your smartphone that will give you a one-time password, right? And put all that information in correct, you get your connection, and off you go on and connect to the corporate network. So of course, the key things there are, again, being on a company issued laptop or computer, and doing that connection through an SSL VPN connection that's secure, along with two-factor authentication. Unfortunately, with the way that we've seen a lot of companies have to quickly adjust to work from home, we're also seeing some, less desirable type scenarios where I can't even remember the last time I worked anywhere where I didn't have a company issued laptop, but it's kind of brought to light to us recently that there are quite a few folks that either just have that corporate desktop, or even there's scenarios where you may have a company that's kind of, say like a call center, or somebody that's doing shift work, right? Where you've got 24-hour operations, 3 different shifts, all utilizing that same internal company desktop that's sitting on the desk and inside the office, right? And all of a sudden, all those folks go from home. Well, they don't have that company laptop to pick up and take home with them. So that's the first challenge is that they may be establishing that connectivity from a home computer, right? Which kind of raises all kinds of alarms in all of our heads from a security perspective. Again, not an ideal scenario, but there are some things that companies can do, at least as a stopgap, to try to work through that scenario, right? So again, it would be establishing the SSL VPN to secure the traffic, utilizing the two-factor authentication to make sure that that authentication itself is secure as well. And then we've even seen a lot of companies will provide a corporate controlled antivirus software or general security protection suite for that home computer that's centrally controlled. So this way they can make sure that at least that particular device that is connecting to their network has some level of security locally. And you can also do some things like check that on the inbound side when they come in to connect to the SSL VPN. You can make sure that that software is active on the device. And of course, you would want to make sure that the firewall policies that allow that SSL VPN connection are very restrictive, right? So you might allow them to only come in and connect to a specific, like a remote desktop type terminal, or just very specific items within the network versus having full access to the environment. And of course, the least desirable is somebody just connects their computer via SSL VPN, right? Which is just no control over it whatsoever. So we, unfortunately, like I said, with some of the folks and some of the companies that had to do a quick change and get people working from home, we did see some folks with this in this scenario, and obviously, hopefully are quickly addressing that and bringing levels up there. Go ahead and next slide, please. All right, so, some questions to ask yourself. I kind of think of the the current state of where people are at, right? All the IT teams and service providers and everybody out there, we're kind of in a mad rush over the past month or so, a month and a half, whatever it's been. It all starts to blur together, just to get everybody operational, right? If your organization wasn't already used to being a strong work from home, remote workforce, or just having that ability, the focus really was just getting things connected and keeping things as operational as possible. So now that, the majority of us are there, really what we need to do is we need to kind of step back and really think about, okay, did we do this properly, right? From a security perspective. So, one of the first things that I always think about is just security patching, patching of the operating system and patching of all of the applications. Honestly, it's one of the most important things that we can do from a security perspective. Is, Microsoft constantly has updates, Adobe constantly has updates, all these different applications constantly have updates. There are many scenarios where that company laptop or device has to come into the office, connect to the office to receive those updates, right? So one of the big things we should all be looking at is are we properly patching and are effectively patching while those employees have those devices at home? Honestly, for the amount of vulnerabilities that come out on a regular basis, it's not unusual, especially for desktops and laptops, for us to see corporations doing bi-weekly patching. So just, again, it's the sooner you can get them out there, the better. The other things that we're wanting to look at, of course, outside of the patching is, things like how are you protecting those company assets against ransomware and other attacks, right? So, again, it goes to control of that device. Do you have control of that device just like you would if it's in the corporate network, right? So do you have centrally controlled, I like to refer to it as antivirus software just because it's the simplest thing for folks to think about, but really it's an endpoint security suite, right? Because it typically involves multiple aspects of security for that. But do you still have control of that just like you would if it's in the office? Do your IT team still have that full visibility to make sure that, configuration settings are being pushed down? If there are issues out at that endpoint, that alerting is happening and somebody knows about it, right? If somebody is infected, you want to be able to know about that before they're coming back into your network, things like that. And of course, with all of this, like Karen mentioned, there's so many new attacks going out there, and ransomware, although it has been huge for a significant amount of time now, we're also seeing a big uptick in that. So one key thing is looking at how you're backing up data and making sure that that backup data is protected against ransomware in general. And with the mad rush of getting everybody in a new kind of the new norm and working environment, it's just, sit back and think about, have there been any significant changes in my data center infrastructure or wherever you might be providing this remote connectivity? And do we need to take a second look there at what needs to be done? Are those all of those remote inbound connections, are they being inspected properly, right? Are we making sure that that user that comes in from a home computer or even a company issued laptop, are they limited to only get to what they really need to get to, since we have less control of that device? And if there are significant changes there's probably some things that should be done, like looking at doing up-to-date current external vulnerability scans and external pen testing, things like that. Okay, next slide. All right, so to dive into some of the things that we should be looking at from remote work security solutions. When we're in the office, we tend to have a little bit more protection around us from that corporate firewall, things like that. So we do want to make sure that that's extended out to the individuals, no matter where they are. Again, in many organizations that were used to a remote workforce or a mobile workforce, a lot of this stuff should have already been in place. But again, it's a good time to recheck things and just make sure that we're all squared away. It used to be that we were worried about somebody going and connecting to the Wi-Fi network in Starbucks and getting hacked. Right now, it's just purely being at home and getting hacked with all of the other devices that are on that home network and activity and things like that. So, we do want to make sure that we have good web content filtering and application control. So that's, kind of controlling what websites an employee can get to, whether it's just from a productivity perspective or, from a security perspective, it's looking more at things like, malicious activity. Application control really dives more into what applications can be executed or launched on their laptops. Most of the time, those devices should be deployed with very limited administrative privileges, so people can't install their own software. But again, it's, we're all in a new environment, right? So worth looking at. VPN access, again, we kind of talked about that, just making sure that everything connecting into the corporate network is secure. But also at the endpoint, we should be looking at things like intrusion prevention and just all the standard anti-malware stuff to make sure that we're watching those devices from a full security perspective. Next slide. All right, so who needs this, right? And currently, we all do. Every business should be looking at this. Every business should be concerned about ransomware attacks. We're all, in the environment of being in a remote workforce. So it should be something that we should all be looking at, no matter what. Even I like to stress to people, even when they talk about, well, we didn't have people working, on home computers before and we don't now, right? There's been so many changes in our environments that it's just worth that recheck and relook. Next slide, please. So again, just talking a little bit more about some of the components of endpoint security and things that we should be looking at. Patching of operating systems and applications. You've probably noticed me bring this up multiple times now, right? It's again, one of the most important things that we can be doing. We need to make sure that that's still continuing to happen. The application control and web reputation and URL filtering, again, that's just making sure that we're looking at what an employee can get to. Other items like behavioral analysis and file reputation, this is stuff that's typically built into some of your endpoint security software. Same thing with the command and control blocking. So, when a botnet gets installed or a bot agent gets installed on the device, we can block that traffic. Another interesting thing that we've been seeing a little bit more interest in recently has been DLP, and also really kind of with that device control. So data loss prevention is going to look at things like, what am I doing with a whole bunch of social security numbers and trying to move them somewhere through an email or whatever, right? Maybe it's a customer list or, any other pertinent data. Again, we've got a lot of folks working remote, a lot of folks working at home. There could be things that are being printed from a health security perspective that we don't want printed, a lot of different things like that. And of course, device control kind of looks more at being able to control somebody from doing things, simple things like plugging a USB device into their laptop at home and, you know, copying out a bunch of data that you don't want. Hard drive encryption is another big thing, again, with everybody being remote. This has always been a pretty big driver, especially from a HIPAA perspective for healthcare organizations. One thing I always mention to folks when they are looking at doing hard drive encryption, you know, the key here is if I lose my laptop, somebody can't get to the data that was on it if it was encrypted. From a legalities perspective, you always want to make sure that you can prove it was encrypted, right? So one way you can prove that you cannot prove that it was encrypted was the IT team installs encryption software on it, hands the device to an employee, and 2 or 3 years later, we're still assuming that it was encrypted, right? There has to be some level of central control over that, to where that device, again, it checks in on a regular basis and logs the fact that my encryption software is still active and it's still functioning properly. So again, that's another one of those things that you're going to want to look at with a remote workforce, as far as, you know, is that connectivity of that logging and that control still in place, just like the patching and, you know, the control of the endpoint security software and things like that. Next slide.
I think you're passing it back to me now, Chris.
I think I am. My slides are a little delayed, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. So continuing to work remote when needed, you know, as we all know, everyone's state, and if you might not necessarily be in the United States, but you probably are if you're on this call, but everyone globally is evaluating when they're going to reopen and what that is going to look like. So within the next few weeks to a month, you know, people are going to be able to get back into the offices again, most likely. But the thing that we're going to have to deal with until there is a vaccine, which is at least a year, if not a year and a half, from what we're hearing from medical professionals, is resurgences of the coronavirus, or excuse me, of COVID-19 again. So we're going to be dealing with this in cycles for the next year. So your business is going to have to maintain some sort of strategy of remote work. So some of the offerings that are out there for remote work technology, Chris just talked about a lot of different security ones, and 2 other ones we're going to hit on here are cloud phone and then video conferencing. Sam, will you change it? So cloud phone, yeah, there's a lot of great options out there with cloud phones. We have several at PowerNet. You can do a hosted one. You can actually, you know, some of our customers have the phone system on premise at their location, but we can have people working at home remotely connecting back to the phone system. So either way, you can make that happen. If you've got nothing today, we can very easily and very quickly set you up with a system. All of the different systems are fully equipped with features, with obviously, you know, voicemail, call forwarding, you know, the ability to see, you know, other people in your organization, things of that nature, all of the normal phone system functions that you would have. And then the other thing that most phone systems, if they hadn't already layered into it, they are now, is conferencing ability. So that is audio and video both. We do have some current promotions running right now. So if that's something that you're interested in, feel free to reach out to me. There's a few different ways, again, with cloud phone systems or with working from home phone systems. You can use your mobile device, and you can forward your phone to the mobile device, or you can have your mobile device actually communicate with the phone system, whether that's cloud or on-premise. You can actually have your desk phone set up at your home. So you can use your desk phone if that's what you prefer, or you can use a soft phone on your computer that would function like your desk phone. Video conferencing. So everybody's familiar with this by now, whether you want to be or not. So the big question with video conferencing, so people are doing this 2 different ways. You know, do you have a corporate account? Or which a lot of people are doing this, they're letting their employees set up their own service. And because we love acronyms in our industry, there's an acronym for this, and it's BYOVC. So bring your own video conferencing. Corporate accounts are definitely the way to go because that allows you to manage downloads into the video conferencing system and manage the conference recordings, which is extremely important. It also allows you to create corporate policy and privacy restrictions for everyone in your organization. If you allow employees to BYO video conferencing, what you're going to wind up with is a few different things that that are not going to be productive. So number one, multiple unfamiliar interfaces. If you let everybody just download whatever they want, people are going to be using different things. And I know we've all been on a video conference call where people can't figure out how to share the screen or how to switch who's presenting, or you can't figure out how to mute yourself or how to turn your video on or off. So there's a little learning curve every time you use a new system with that. And if everybody's using whatever they want, that's going to lead to not very productive meetings because everybody's learning that all over again for that different system. The other interesting thing is your employee could possibly choose a video conferencing service that is actually malware. So again, we know how cyber criminals like to take advantage of things, and that's another thing they're taking advantage of, is they are actually creating video conferencing services that are actually malware. But here's one of the biggest issues is if you're allowing employees to set up all their own video conferencing, you have no control over where your recordings, i.e. your corporate data, is being stored, which is, it's huge in any case, but it's really, really huge if you have any sort of governmental regulations around your data and how and where it's stored. So if you're a healthcare entity or anyone, financial institute, anything like that, where you have federal regulations that you have to follow. We do have a current promotion running on our Meet video conferencing, which is based on Zoom. So for right now, we actually have free services through July 1st for education, healthcare, government, and nonprofit. And for everyone else, we do have reduced pricing on other packages. So here's some tips on how to secure your video conferencing solutions. You want to password protect the meetings. Again, here's a term everybody's probably heard of by now, which is Zoom bombing. It's interesting. Zoom has turned into like the Kleenex of the video conferencing world. It doesn't matter what service you're using, people call it Zoom. So Zoom bombing, if you haven't heard of it yet, is a malicious outsider crashing the video conference. If you set a password for all of your video conferences, which you should make that mandatory if you're managing that, even if you're not managing that for everyone in your organization, it should be mandatory. And that will go a long way to prevent Zoom bombing. Don't share meeting information on public platforms. It might seem convenient, but again, it can lead to malicious activity. Host controls. So you want to lock the room once the meeting has begun. This will definitely eliminate Zoom bombing. The other thing the host can do is manage or remove participants. The host can also disable auto screen sharing to prevent the sharing of offensive material. So that's what a lot of the Zoom bombing people are doing. They're not. So some of the people that are doing the Zoom bombing, they're doing it to download things into the chat that is malware and that is malicious. But some of them are just doing it to be offensive, and they're getting in and they're posting offensive things. Utilize waiting rooms or lobbies. So the host lets everybody in all at once. It ensures you know who's entering the meeting. Disable file transfer features. Again, this is going to stop the cyber criminals from using the Zoom bombing to get into meeting rooms and upload malicious files. If there are files that are necessary for your meeting, you should email them instead of downloading them into the meeting. And then Chris has talked about this a lot, but keep it updated to the latest version. So install those patches on whatever type of conferencing system that you are using.